Alrighty, so it's time to fill out the bracket for the Leeds Cup tournament and predict who is going to win the inaugural Leeds Cup tournament. And as always, I do apologize if the bracket is pretty bad. I'm not the best in terms of making brackets, and I'm also wearing neutral color because you cannot blame me for wearing a color of a team, or worse, a jersey of a team when I made these prediction video and call it a jinx. But as always, if you think that some of the teams I picked to move on to the next round and you disagree, let me know in the comments below. I'll probably repeat the same thing once I finish filling out the bracket. And keep in mind, I am gonna make some bold prediction because if there's one thing you know about the Leeds Cup tournament so far, is that there has been some upsets, there has been some unexpected resort, and I expect that could be the same case in this Leeds Cup tournament. So with that being said, let us actually begin filling out the bracket, and we're going to start with the left side. And speaking of surprising result and upset, I'm just going to go straight away and make a bold prediction and say that FC Juarez is going to beat LAFC. Now, the reason why I do think Juarez can beat LAFC is because I think they've done well so far in this tournament. FC Juarez, they are a team that I feel like it's kind of a sleeper team, a team that is not well known to be a powerhouse in Liga MX, but they do have some really good players that can really surprise an MLS team. And then my concern, of course, with LAFC is kind of the same concern I have with New England when they won the Supporter Shield and they had that long layoff before they played their first playoff game against NYCFC and they lost that one. The long layoff is going to hurt this team in terms of getting themselves back to. I mean, it's been 17 days since their last game against Minnesota United, and that no matter how good a team is, when you have that long of a layoff, and not to mention LAFC hasn't actually played any friendly during that time. I think Pachuca, of course, faced the same issue, but at least I think Pachuca did schedule a couple of friendly games to keep themselves in competitive shape. That's not the case for LAFC. So it's going to be interesting to see how they're going to look. I won't be surprised if they can come off the block slow because, when you need to get yourself back to match fitness after a bit of a layoff, yeah, it's going to be the case. And we'll see whether or not if FC Juarez can take advantage. And I do think that they could. Now, we move on to the next one, which is Leon and RSL, and this is a tough one. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, this is one that I mean, we are going to get a lot of good round of 32 matchup. We also have some rivalry games in terms of these round 32 matchup, but I think this one is probably the most underrated one because both of these teams, I've said that I think both of these teams can go really deep in the tournament, and unfortunately, straight off the bat, both of these teams is gonna face off against each other. Whew, you know what? I'm gonna go with RSL. You know what? I'm just gonna say RSL is gonna do it. I mean, even in that loss that they had against Rayados, I thought they outplayed Rayados. It's just their finishing wasn't that good. And Leon, I think in this tournament they've been okay. I mean, they haven't been like a world beater. I mean, they had a 19 round PK shootout against Vancouver, and then in the game against the Galaxy, they were able to just about sneak by. And with the way that RSL, again, this is a team that I think is flying under the radar, and a team that even when the Leeds Cup tournament is over, this is a team that I think Western Conference teams has to be fear about because I do think RSL has a chance to be maybe the favorites coming out of the West in MLS. But as of now, I do think that they'll win this one as long as they can finish, as long as they put away their chances. I think RSL is going to move on, but it's not going to be an easy task. Moving on, we got Tigres versus Vancouver, and as much as I want to see more Vanni Sartini magic, it's got to be Tigres. That's going to be moving on into the next round. I mean, Tigres, I think so far, yes, in the group stage, they haven't been looking impressive, but that's because that's typical Tigres. Like this is the thing about Tigres, where they're such a dangerous team, where they really just kind of maybe put like second or third gear in terms of these group stage match, similar to what we've seen in their season in the regular season, the Clausura and Apertura. But once we get to the knockout stage, this is when we're gonna see the best of Tigres, and I do think that again, Tigres is gonna be one of the teams that I think every MLS team is gonna fear, and pretty much every team is gonna fear too, because they have that pedigree to go deep in tournament. And yeah, as much as I know that the Whitecaps has had some magical moment in this Leagues Cup tournament, yeah, I think that road's going to come to an end in this game against Tigres. And likewise, the same with the next matchup. I think Rayados is going to move on. So if you want to talk about probably the most impressive team in this group stage, Rayados has to be that one. Like I mean, they are just absolutely unstoppable right now with the way how lethal they have been going for it on goal. Yeah, I think that's just a little bit too much for the Portland Timbers to handle. I mean, to be fair, the Timbers did well against Tigres, but again, this is the thing about Rayados, and I'm pretty sure their Cascadia rival learn is that yeah, you cannot let them get back into the game. If you let them get back into the game and even create one sniff of chances, they're gonna put the ball in the back of the net. And not to mention they have probably the guy that if you want to talk about an MVP of this tournament so far, it's got to be Herman Betarame. I mean, he's been just a man in form right now, and that yeah, I expect back Monterey to move on, and that should really set up a very interesting kind of matchup between the two Monterey team in Tigres and Rayados. Then we move on to the bottom part of the left side of the bracket. We got Columbus and Minnesota. Now this one is also a little bit tough because I mean my heart says that Columbus is going to win. My head said Minnesota is going to win mainly because Minnesota has been playing much better on the road this season compared when they're playing at home, and Columbus this season also been very good at home. So it's like you just it's kind of almost like the immovable object versus the unstoppable force. And I think I've said that with Minnesota before, and they were able to win that kind of matchup. So you know what? I'm gonna say the Loons are gonna move on. I think they're gonna beat Columbus in this one. I mean, yes, they definitely made a statement win against Club America in that one. But again, the loss of Lucas Arian is still going to hurt. And I know there've been rumor to get Diego Rossi, and most likely he's going to be joining this Peru team in the future, but just not in this game. I think Minnesota would just have enough. Again, this is a team that I just don't get how they are so good on the road, whether they play against a good team or a bad team. They just stumble whenever they play at home. So again, in some way, I feel like Adrian Heath was kind of playing 4D chess, saying that yeah, it was great that we won against Puebla, but we got to make sure we finish second so we can play a road game because that's where we feel more comfortable. And yeah, I'm gonna say Minnesota will pull off the upset. Then we go to Toluca and Sporting KC, and this is another tough one because Sporting KC. I think in this tournament they've looked very well. They were very unfortunate to lose against FC Cincinnati on opening night, and they look really impressive in the game against Chivas. But ultimately, I think Toluca is going to have their revenge against Sporting KC, and the reason why I say revenge is because Sporting KC handily beat Toluca in the Concacaf Champions League a couple of years ago. Though that was a really bad Toluca team that is, and a very good Sporting KC side. I mean, Toluca has looked well so far in this Leeds Cup tournament as well. One thing that they're very good is goal scoring. I mean, they score along with Rayados, they have scored the most goal in the group stage so far, and I think that's just going to be good enough for them to move on into the next round. And keep in mind, no Alan Polito in this game. Again, Alan Polito going to be suspended for 2 games because of violent conduct. And I think in the last game against Chivas, while Johnny Russell definitely stepped up, it was pretty clear that they dearly miss Alan Polito on this team in the last game against Chivas. Then we move on to Chicago versus Club America. Well, this one's easy. I mean, it's got to be Club America. I mean, this is nothing against the Chicago Fire, as much as I know they've been doing very well this season. But unfortunately, this is going to be a road game for them. I mean, I know this game is actually going to be taking place at SeatGeek Stadium, which I was surprised. I feel like they should have played at Soldier Field with the way that this is Club America after all. You could easily draw 30 or 40,000 fans. They even said that there's going to be at least 25,000 in that stadium, and the tickets sold out in just like 10 minutes or so for yeah, this is going to be a road game for the Chicago Fire. It's going to be Club America invading SeatGeek Stadium, and that's going to give them the advantage. Not to mention, yes, I know they play badly in the game against Columbus, but when Club America is hitting on all cylinder, like what we saw against St. Louis, they're a team that is an unstoppable force, and there's the reason why they are along them and Chivas probably the most recognizable name in Mexican soccer because they have that quality to really scare any Liga MX team. Then we go to FC Cincinnati versus Nashville. So far I talked about a couple of matchup involving Liga MX and MLS team that are good. I think this is one of the first good one because you know how it is with Cincinnati and Nashville. They do not like each other, though I think in the end Cincinnati should have the advantage. Mainly because this is a play at TQ Out Stadium. Nashville has not been very good this season on the road, and that earlier this season I think Cincinnati has already beaten Nashville, and I think Cincinnati just have enough quality against Nashville. Like the only way I can see Nashville moving on this is if Hani Mukhtar go nuclear again, and so far he hasn't really gone nuclear in this Leeds Cup tournament too. Besides maybe the game against the Colorado Rapids where he came off the bench and made an instant impact. Yeah, so I do think that Cincinnati should have enough, and Cincinnati is one of those teams that I think they could definitely be considered one of the favorites, if not the favorites, of potentially be that MLS team that go all the way to the final. Then we move on into the other bracket, and I would say this part is going to be the more easier side. And I think, speaking of FC Cincinnati, as much as I said that, they are in the tougher bracket in terms of facing against a lot of good Liga MX team. Because when you look at this bracket, this is where you can see there are some relatively easy kind of matchup for some of these teams, and there isn't as much more kind of a dangerous threat of Liga MX team that these MLS team might have to face, as we see in this bracket that feature the likes of Rayados, Tigres, Club America, even Toluca, Sandstorm. And we start off with the very right side of the bracket, that is the Philadelphia Union and DC United. It's got to be the Union. That's going to be moving on into the next match. Now, I will say this with the Union, they got to be careful because no one thing about DC this season, they've been very inconsistent, and it kind of showed in this Leeds Cup tournament too. They played very well against Montreal, and then they completely didn't show up against Puma. So, depending on which version of DC we're going to see in this one, it could make it interesting. But I think the Union should have enough quality. They're playing at home. This is a team that don't lose home games often, and I think they should have enough to move on into the next round. Then we go to the New York Red Bulls versus NYCFC, and again, it is a New York derby. It can be very unpredictable, but ooh, I'm gonna say NYCFC will do it. I mean, I also won't be surprised this might go to a PK shootout, and it could be a low scoring affair because neither of these teams have been doing very well this season, and both of these teams kind of just summarize the season that both of these teams has had, where both of these teams has had problem in terms of scoring, but they've been rock solid in the defensive part. So I do think that this could be one of those games where it could be a low scoring affair, and don't be surprised it might even go to a PK shootout. Also, I just realized the camera is a little bit fogged up, so let me just kind of hopefully, yeah, I'm not sure if that made it a little bit better, but yeah, again, going back to what I said, I think NYCFC should have the better. But again, it could really be a toss up. And then we move on to the first and only matchup that is an all Liga MX matchup in the round of 32, and that of course is Pumas and Querétaro. I'm gonna say Pumas will move on, but don't be surprised if Querétaro can create a bit of a surprise. I mean, I was kind of surprised Querétaro actually move on into the next round. I thought Tijuana Cholos had enough quality against a cutthroat team that they're considered one of the bottom feeder in the league at MX, and against a Pumas team that I know they didn't play well in that first game against Montreal, but against the game against DC, Pumas really shown you that in a tournament they can definitely create some magic too, and that yeah against Cutthroat I think Pumas just have a little bit more of the quality to move on into the next round. Then we go to the next one, which is Atlas versus New England. I'm gonna say the Raps will win this one, but it won't be easy. I mean, I know Atlas has not been impressive so far in this group stage tournament. They barely won both of their matchups. They only won 1-0 against NYCFC and then won 1-0 against a TFC side that many consider to be the worst team in the tournament. But I will say this, at last they can keep the game close, and that New England's got to be careful because of that. So yeah, I think they will be well aware of it, but I think they should have enough quality. And the Revs is definitely one of those teams I can see could potentially go deep in this tournament too. Then we go to the next one, which is Mazatlan and FC Dallas. And I'm going to say Mazatlan is going to move on into this one. So, yeah, I think Mazatlan is going to move on again. This is So the team, it does feature a couple of former MLS player, including one of them that I know for sure is Luis Amaria, coming from Minnesota United and was traded just a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, I do think Mazatlan does have enough, because the thing I'm concerned about Dallas is the goal scoring. The goal scoring is just not there. And yes, they of course got Jesus Ferreira back in this team, and he sort of helps it a little bit. Although I mean, he hasn't really kind of go nuclear and has carried the attack as we'll be seeing in this Leagues Cup tournament. Knowing the fact that Mazatlan, as I'm pretty sure Los Verdes fans might have warned Dallas fans of how you do not want to underestimate this Mazatlan team, even if they are not considered one of the powerhouse in Mexican soccer and are kind of like a bottom tier team. They can definitely they play well, and we have seen it so far in this tournament too. I think they also beat FC Juarez in the all Liga MX kind of battle between them and FC Juarez in that group. So this is a Mazatlan team that can pose some threats, and I think that's going to be enough to beat this FC Dallas team. That they have this Dallas team. I mean they have so far in this tournament. I know they won both well, actually, they lost the game against Charlotte, and then they won their game against Necaxa, and that, yeah, neither of these teams you can say that gives me a lot of confidence about this Dallas team to go deep in this tournament. Then we get to the one that everybody's talking about, which is Orlando City versus Inter Miami. In fact, this is the game that I think everybody talked about when it was finalized. The fact that, yep, we're gonna see a Florida derby between Lionel Messi and his group against an Orlando City team that you know that Orlando City fans want nothing to but to beat their not only their rival down the south, but also beat Lionel Messi and kick them out of the Leeds Cup tournament early. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Miami's going to win this. And again, one of the reasons why Miami is going to win this is they're playing at home. If this was at Exploria, it can be a little tricky because Miami has never beaten Orlando City at Exploria Stadium. But because it's at Drive Pink Stadium, and you know that the league leads this tournament and the Leagues Cup, they're going to do every way to make sure Miami move on into the next one. Like there's no way they're going to make a team that it currently have Lionel Messi as the top big talking point of this tournament to just go out after one round. They're gonna make sure that is gonna happen, and I think Miami again they've been very impressive in this tournament. I mean they play well against Atlanta United. In fact, they not only play well, but that was probably the best performance I've seen Miami play in a long time. And then of course the Hollywood script ending we saw with them in Cruz Azul, they're gonna make sure that Miami does move on, despite the fact that one of the things that I am concerned about Orlando is the inconsistent form. I mean, yes, in the last game they got a big win, and then they showed their cardiac cats kind a mentality in the last game against Santos Laguna, but that's I mean that's kind of the high. So yeah, with the way if you go by the Orlando City inconsistency theory or the inconsistent theorem from this season, they're probably going to be due for a loss because that's kind of the pattern that Orlando City followed this season. Then we move on to the next one, and this is Charlotte versus Cruz Azul. And keep in mind, this is actually the only game that is not going to be taking place at the MLS stadium, because all the other game, even if the Liga MX team is designated as the host team, it will be playing at the MLS stadium of whoever is the MLS team playing, but not this one. This one is actually going to be playing at Toyota Stadium down at Dallas. I have no idea why that is the case. I think they had some concert kind of conflict at Bank of America Stadium, so that's why Charlotte couldn't play at home. But nevertheless, whew, this one's a tough two because I mean neither of these teams have made me look well. Actually, Charlotte did look impressive in their game last last time, but again against Necaxa. But keep in mind this is Necaxa. Necaxa is not really a good team, and against a Cruz Azul team that one thing about Cruz Azul, they when it comes to tournament they always find ways to fail spectacularly and find ways to lose. I mean, I'm gonna go with Charlotte with that. I think Charlotte will have enough to move on. And the thing about Charlotte is that they're also not really a good team, and the defense is still a bit of an issue with this team. Even in that game against Necaxa, where eventually won pretty big, they had problems in terms of dealing with those Necaxa defenders, but I think they'll just have enough because I think Cruz Azul, they're probably very fortunate that they got into the knockout stage. I mean, against Atlanta they got outplayed in that one. They were able to sneak by thanks to the PK shootout. And then finally we go to where Pachuca play against the Houston Dynamo. Now this is a tricky one because again, this is one that on my heart, I'm thinking Houston could have enough to beat Pachuca, but and Pachuca so far this season they haven't done well lately. And keep in mind they're coming off of a long break, though they did have had a friendly game during this long break too. So they're not going to be like LAFC where they haven't play a game during this long stretch. So yeah, this is gonna be a tight one. But I think in the end I would say Houston will have the edge, either in a penalty kick shootout. Again, playing at home is going to be a huge factor to the Dynamo chances of moving on. I mean, they've always been a better home team than they are on the roads. And again, with Pachuca, they're definitely not the Pachuca that we've seen before, where they were considered to be the best of Liga MX. And again, I think mainly due to the fact that they did sell some of their best player, and they're kind of one of those teams that is kind of like the FC Dallas or the Philadelphia Union of the world, where they sell some of their best player after developing them and so forth. So yeah, I think the Dynamo will still have enough edge to move on into the next round. Now we get into the quarterfinal, and I'm gonna have to speed up this video because this video is already kind of long. Actually, not the quarterfinal, but the round of 16 that is. And in the round of 16, we got FC Juarez and RSL. I think RSL will move on. I think RSL will have just enough of the firepower against an FC Juarez team that I said that they'll definitely surprise LAFC, and I think they'll surprise RSL too. But still, I think RSL just have enough quality, and I think they're going to be moving on into the quarterfinal. Then we go into the next matchup, and the next matchup, of course. Oh, actually, you know what? You know what? I just realized I think I forgot to link this bracket into this one. So yeah, let me actually let me see. Yeah, I think I made a mistake in terms of making this bracket because both of these teams will have to face each other to do that. Anyway, so in the game between Tigres and Rayados, again, this is a toss up again because these two teams are really good, and it sucks the fact that these two teams that could easily be in the final. We have seen some incident where both of these teams have faced in the final, either in the Liga or in the CONCACAF Champions League. I think in the end, Monterrey will have enough. Again, they're just red hot right now. I mean, Tigres is known to be a good tournament team too, but I think Rayados will just have enough quality, and they of course will be moving on into the next round. Then of course we get Minnesota and Toluca. Um, I'm gonna say Toluca will do it because again, I don't trust Minnesota in terms of their home form. I think Toluca is a really good team. And then we got Club America and FC Cincinnati. Again, another matchup that could be a really good matchup if this was in the final, but because it's taking place in Ohio, and we know that when Liga MX team or Mexican team or El Tri goes to Ohio, it's kind of a death sentence in some ways. I mean, it seemed like whenever a Mexican team play in Ohio, it's just a graveyard yard for them, as what we saw with Club America play against Columbus. I think FC Cincinnati will have enough, and they will be moving on into the next round. And then moving to the other bracket, and I think I might have made did I make the same mistake as I did here? Let me see. I don't think I made the same mistake here, but in this matchup we got the Philadelphia Union and NYCFC. I think Philly should have enough. Again, so far in both of the games that they play against NYCFC, they have won both of them, and I expect that's going to be the same thing here. Then you got Pumas and New England. Oh boy, this is going to be an interesting one. I mean, I'm pretty sure Refs fans have not forgot about this matchup and how that went with after they had a 3-0 lead against Pumas, only for them to throw away that lead when they go to Mexico and end up losing in a PK shootout. So yeah, I think the Revs are going to be very motivated if they do play against Pumas in this one, and I think in the end they should have enough to move on into the next round. Then we go to Mazatlan versus Miami. Again, I think Miami is going to win this one. And the thing about Miami and their road to the final, it's actually relatively easy. I mean, and I wonder if this has something to do with. I mean, I know a lot of conspiracy theorists or even some haters about Inter Miami. I'm gonna say, yeah, the Leeds Cup tournament, they basically did this on purpose so that they make sure Inter Miami have the easiest road to the final, and that again against Mazatlan. Well, Mazatlan could pose a threat. You know the league is going to make sure Inter Miami move on to the next round. Then we got Charlotte versus the Houston Dynamo. Again, this depends on who's going to be playing at home and who's playing on the road. If this is going to be at a home game for Charlotte, Charlotte will win. If this game is at Houston, I think the Dynamo will win. So because of that, it's hard for me to predict because I forgot how they decide the venue for the next round. I think Charlotte would be hosting because Charlotte did get more points than what the Houston Dynamo gets. So as a result, I'm gonna say Charlotte will move on to the next one. Again, Houston is a team that they're not the same when they're playing on the road compared to when they're playing at home. So I think Charlotte will move on to the next round. Then we move on into this one, and then we of course get to the quarter final matchup, which is going to be RSL versus Rayados. So yeah, this is a rematch of what we saw earlier in the group stage. Remember when RSL they played relatively well in that group stage matchup, only for them to lose 3-0. Um, yeah, I mean, I know RSL will be motivated, but I do think that Rayados will have enough again, this is the thing about Rayados. They're a team that I think could be very clinical when they have the opportunity. And there's been times where RSL lead themselves self open, like what we saw in the game early on. So I think Rayados would have enough. But don't be surprised if RSL can cause an upset and get some revenge out of this one. Then we go to the bottom part, which is Toluca and FC Cincinnati. Again, I'm going to go with FC Cincinnati. This is also going to be another game. And again, for Cincinnati, it's kind of unfortunate that they have such a tough road. Like they start the first game against Nashville. I mean, Nashville could be decent team. Even though I mentioned that they haven't been having success on the road, then they face against Copa America, considered to be one of the favorites, and then they got Toluca, who I think people shouldn't underestimate Toluca. Toluca is kind of one of those teams that is flying under the radar that at times too, and that yeah, I think despite that, I think Cincinnati should have enough quality to move on into the next round. Especially, knowing the fact that Cincinnati will be playing at home against these Liga MX's opponent, and Cincinnati has yet to lose at home this season, even though there's been times that they came close to do so. I think that will give them the advantage to move on into the next round. Then we got Philadelphia Union versus New England, and also this is where you kind of see how I could actually well, I'm gonna end up actually having three of the four team that goes to the semifinal, which that sounds like kind of impossible to happen because I have a feeling there's going to be more Liga MX team that can go deep. But still in the other bracket, we got the Philadelphia Union versus New England. Again, this is it's a bit of a tough one too because this. I really think this could also be a matchup we could see in the playoffs. In later this season could be a preview of the Eastern Conference final or even in the Eastern Conference semifinal, that is. But yeah, and also it depends on who gets to get home field advantage if this matchup goes, which I think Philly would get home field advantage if I'm not mistaken because New England did lose that PK shootout against the Red Bulls and the Union does have more points. At least that's what I think it's going to be how it determined. But yeah, I'm gonna say Philly with this again. I think they have New England has quality too. They have difference maker, but again they always been a team that has had problem in terms of getting over the hump. And I haven't even mentioned the fact that the refs will not be having Bruce Arena at least for the next game too because of him making some remark that forced him to be on administrative leave. So that could be a big challenge too, not having their head coach being there. So yeah, I'm gonna pick Philly to win this one. Then we go to Miami versus Charlotte. It's gotta be Miami. I mean, again, Miami gets, like I said, they get such an easy road to basically move on into the semifinal. That I can understand why some people say that they some people say that they could be a team that could go all the way to the final or at least into the semifinal. But now we get to the semifinal, and this is where we get Rayados versus FC Cincinnati, and this is where it gets even more tougher. Like every time when we get deeper into the tournament, it gets even tougher to predict, and this is where also I wouldn't be surprised this might not even be the matchup, and that my part of my bracket would just go completely bust. So in this one, again, this is a tough one too. I mean, this would be been such a great final matchup too, but I'm gonna say FC Cincinnati is going to move on into the final. And then on the other end, I'm going to say Philly is going to move on to the final. As much as I know, no, I think the Leeds Cup tournament and even John Gabbard is hoping the fact that Miami will get to there because they want Lionel Messi to win this tournament. I think the Union should have enough quality, and that sets up a very interesting final. I mean, this is pretty much like Philly West versus Philly East. Both of these team they know each other very well, and again, this is also a matchup that I think everybody thought that it could be the Eastern Conference final matchup this season. So yeah, and this one again, it depends on who, of course, play at home. If the Union play at home, they might get a slight edge, and the same goes for FC Cincinnati. But yeah, I'm gonna say FC Cincinnati is going to be your Leeds Cup tournament winner. And now I want to apologize to FC Cincinnati fan in advance because one thing again with my prediction, sometimes it could be bad, and don't be surprised they might find themselves getting eliminated in the first hurdle, and my brackets will just go completely bust. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of my prediction. And again, I went a little bit faster when we get into the semifinal because the picture gets a little bit clearer, but also just where it's kind of almost like a toss up and trying to throw a dart on the board and hope you land it in the bullseye. But yeah, either way, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and also let me know in the comments below your prediction in terms of who's gonna win Leeds Cup. I predict Cincinnati is going to do it. It's probably not going to be Cincinnati going to win it, knowing that I use of all the time that I fill out brackets going to my days a couple of years ago when I started making MLS video in this channel, I don't think I've ever got one correct in terms of who I predicted is gonna win the whole thing. So yeah, again, apologies to Cincinnati fans in advance, but still they have a very good team. They have a team that I think can go really deep, and the same I can say about the Philadelphia Union too. So yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for this video, and as I said before, let me know in the comments below, and let me know in the comments if you disagree with some of the teams I predict that's going to be moving on into the next round. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.